All right, hello everyone, and welcome to another section of Introduction to American Politics. And in this video, we are going to be talking about media and American politics. Now, I'm sure most of you are familiar with political media of some sort, CNN, Fox News, MSNBC. And one of the things that I think a lot of people are used to seeing right now is this notion of ideologically tilted media. We have this sort of ideal that media should be neutral and objective, but we're seeing more and more the proliferation of politically slanted media with an ideological bent. And so we're going to sort of start off with that premise today by assuming that, what we're observing now in today's media, and then talk about how we got there. So that is actually quite a puzzle, right? Because media sources are driven by profits. They are profit organizations, after all. Most of them are owned by large corporations, at least the larger media outlets like CNN, MSNBC. Sure, certainly there are others that are smaller and more independent. But even the larger ones, despite the fact that you'd think that they would be incentivized to attract larger audiences, do provide niche content. So there's two sides to this puzzle. Why would media sources present tilted content to begin with? And the second question is, why would people consume biased news? And, are facts preferable to opinions, or are opinions preferable to facts, and to whom? So let's start off with what we think the role of media is. Well, we usually probably think of media as a source of information, telling us what's happening in the world. We often leave it to them to evaluate and interpret the events, put those events in context, tell us if they're significant or not significant, if they are going to signal changes to come, or if they're single events. In this way, they solve another collective action problem. They can help mass audiences prioritize problems and events that go on in the news. But remember, these are for-profit organizations, most of them. And so the determination of what's important and what's not important and how events are placed into context can be determined by profit considerations. Now, we often think of this as something new, that media should be neutral and has been neutral, but the digital age has just provided people with more opportunities to consume biased news as well as to broadcast biased news. But bias in media is absolutely nothing new. As a matter of fact, it is more the rule than the exception. Some of you might have heard offhand the phrase, "remember the Maine." For those of you that don't know, the USS Maine was a naval ship that sank off the coast of Florida and essentially started the Spanish-American War. Now, how did the ship sink? Well, most historians think that it was due to simple natural causes, weather, structural integrity of the ship combined for the ship to go down. But that's not what was portrayed in the media at the time. A lot of newspaper owners, a lot of titans of industry were, quite frankly, angling for an armed conflict in the Caribbean with the Spaniards for a variety of reasons. And so a lot of media spun this narrative that the ship sank because of some sort of military attack by the Spaniards. A naval attack, some sort of firebombing and all that. None of it was true, but it was sensationalized in this way in the newspapers of the time. So people often talk about fake news, news that is intentionally misleading or outright false in order to garner up an emotional reaction. That is also not new. That has been around for as long as media has been around. So let's talk about how we got here.